Come to child's pose on your mat, bringing your knees out wide toward the edges of your mat, great toes touching. And as you exhale, shift your hips back over your heels, extending your hands out in front of you and allowing your torso to come down toward the mat, maybe resting your forehead on the mat or on a block. Now firmly root your hands and your fingertips into the mat, feeling tension in your arms. Inhale deeply, filling the entire torso with air. And as you exhale, I want you to press all of the air out of your lungs, releasing tension and stress from the body. If you haven't done so already, close your eyes. Drawing your mind away from the stress of the day, away from your to-do list, away from obligations, away from commitment, away from anything that might cause anxiety or fear. And draw your mind into this space here on your mat. Brennan Manning wrote in his book, The Ragamuffin Gospel, "To live by grace means to acknowledge my whole life story, the light side and the dark. In admitting my shadow side, I learn who I am and what God's grace means." As Thomas Merton put it, a saint is not someone who is good, but who experiences the goodness of God. As you practice today, I want you to draw attention to your dark side, your shadow side. And instead of remaining stuck in the shadows, I want you to think about how those shadows have led you to God's grace. Bringing your hands together in prayer, and bend your elbows so that your hands come to rest on the base of your neck, breathing into the stretch along your triceps and into your shoulders. Offering up the shadow side to the one who can give you grace. Releasing your hands, palms pressing back into the mat. Extended child's pose. Plant your left hand onto the mat and thread your right hand underneath your torso so that the outside of the right arm rests on the mat, palm facing upward. Breathing into the stretch along the back of the heart and into the right shoulder. As you gently release this, press the right palm into the mat, threading the left hand beneath your torso, bringing the outside of the left arm to the mat, palm facing upward. Placing a block under your forehead if you need to release some tension in your neck. Breathe here again, feeling the opening along the back side of your heart and into the left shoulder. As you inhale, release this, and bringing both palms to the mat before pressing up to a tabletop pose. Extending your right leg out behind you and the left hand forward. Spinal balance. As you exhale, bring the left hand to the side of your body like a wing. Inhale, left hand comes forward again. Exhale, left hand comes out to the side. Inhale, back forward. engaging your core before gently releasing this down to the mat. Other side, extend your left foot out behind you, right hand in front of you. Core is engaged as you send your right hand out to the side of your body like a wing. Inhale back forward. Exhale out to the side. Inhale forward. Gently releasing this, hand and knee come back down to the mat. Widen your stance a little bit and lower your hips down into a plank pose here, remaining on your knees as you exhale down, chaturanga. Inhale back to plank. We're just warming up here, so stay on your knees, feeling the engagement in your core as you exhale down. Inhale back up. One more time, exhale down. Inhale up. Pressing your hips back for either child's pose or puppy pose. For puppy pose, your hips will stay aligned over your knees as your heart melts down toward the mat. Maybe bringing your hands to prayer at the base of your skull. As you inhale, release this and send your hips back for downward facing dog. Feel free to pedal this out if you need to, breathing deeply into the space along the back of your legs. Focusing on melting your heart down towards your thighs, keeping a long line from your hips through your shoulders. As you inhale, rise up onto the balls of your feet and come into a high plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, high plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale again, high plank here. Engaging your core, drawing those muscles in towards your spine as you exhale and lower down to forearm plank. Building strength in the shoulders and the core here. Inhale back up, high plank. Core stays engaged the entire time. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Dropping the top of your thighs to the mat for cobra pose here. Draw your shoulders down and away from your ears, opening up the front side of your heart. Exhale, press back, downward facing dog. Lowering down onto your forearms for dolphin pose. Walking this out here if you need to. Again, working into the space along the back side of the legs. Inhale, lift the right leg high. Exhale, gently release this. Inhale the left leg high. Exhale, release. Back in dolphin pose, come up onto the palms of your hands for downward facing dog again. Melting your heart down towards your thighs, creating space along the back side of the body. Inhale up to plank. Rolling onto your right hand. Extend the left fingertips high toward the ceiling for side plank, keeping the hips lifted here, engaging your core, feeling strength in the right shoulder before gently releasing this back to plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. And exhale back to plank, rolling to the left side. Left hand firmly planted, right hand reaching up towards the ceiling. Keep your hips lifted here. You can stack your feet or you can stagger your feet depending on how much help you need in the balance department. Exhale, gently release this back to high plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. Dropping your thighs to the mat for cobra. Again, opening up along the front side of the heart. Exhale, press your hips back, child's pose. So we have this shadow side. The side of us that oftentimes we would rather forget exists. And yet here in this passage, we're told that to live by grace means to acknowledge our whole life story, both the light and the dark. Because light can't exist without shadow. Without darkness, there would be no space for the light to penetrate. Without our shadow side, we would have no need for grace or salvation. So as you wrestle with your shadow side here on the mat, remember the grace. Remember where God met you in that darkness. Or maybe remember where He wants to meet you in the darkness you are currently living in. Bringing your hands back to prayer at the base of your skull. Quieting your spirit. Resting in grace. Inhale the palms of the hands back to the mat. Coming up to table and then exhaling back to downward facing dog. Inhale up to plank. Feeling an engagement in the muscles of the core and in the shoulders and the back. Exhale down, forearm plank again, and then rolling over onto the right forearm. Left hand extends high. Another variation of side plank here. Gently release this. Come back up to plank. Core stays engaged through all of this plank work here. Exhale back down onto your forearms and then roll to the left forearm, extending your right hand high. Side plank again here. Don't cheat this. Engage all of the muscles in your core and in your shoulders. Coming back to forearm plank before inhaling back up high plank. Exhale, downward facing dog. Really feel an opening up here in your shoulders as you melt your heart down towards your thighs. And then exhale down to dolphin. Simply coming down onto your forearms. Inhale, roll up onto the balls of your feet. Exhale, back. Just continuing this motion here, rocking back and forth. Feeling the strength in your core that it takes to roll forward and backward. Feeling the strength in your shoulders as they bear the weight of your body. Exhale down, child's pose. Inhaling up so that you're sitting, clasp your hands behind your back, opening up through the front of the heart. Drawing your shoulders down away from your ears, feeling the strength in your arms here. Now as you exhale, you're going to hinge forward with a flat spine, initiating the movement from your hips. As you come into a variation of rabbit pose, your hips will align over your knees. The crown of your head comes to the mat, and your fisted hands will come up towards the top of the ceiling, or maybe even shift over towards the front of the room. Exhale and gently release this. Inhale the arms high. Hands in prayer. Exhale your hands down to your heart space. To live by grace means to acknowledge my whole life story, the light side and the dark. Exhale, bring your hands to the mat. Tabletop pose. Widen your stance a bit, coming back to downward facing dog as you exhale. Bring the edges of your feet wide out towards the edges of your mat. Reaching through with your left hand, grab the outside of the right shin. Breathing deeply into this twist here. Switch sides now as you plant the left hand into the mat and reach through with the right hand to grab the outside of the left shin. Melting the heart down towards the thighs, release this back to downward facing dog. And then gently walk your feet back together. Still in downward facing dog here before lowering back down to dolphin. Walk your toes forward in towards your body and then back out. Inhale, walk the toes forward. Exhale, back out, building strength in the shoulders and strength in the core. If forearm balance is in your practice, feel free to take that here. Otherwise, continue working on stepping forward and back or rolling forward and back. Playing with the sensation of having your hips lining up over your shoulders, maybe taking a little bit of balance here on your shoulders before walking your feet back out, forearm plank, and then lowering your belly down to the mat. Release all of the tension in your body here. Palms are pressing down in towards the mat. Now bring your palms together behind you, clasping your hands firmly, feeling an opening in your shoulders, maybe resting your head on a block if needed. Gently releasing your hands, extend them out in front of you now, palms pressing into the mat before gently bringing your hands together in prayer behind your head. Again, breathing into that stretch along the triceps and the shoulders. And bring your left hand out to the side of your body like a wing. Arm is straight here. And gently roll your hips so that they're stacked. And begin to roll the right shoulder back as well, feeling an opening and a very deep stretch along the front side of that left shoulder. Maybe bending your right knee and bringing the sole of the right foot behind your left thigh. This will help a little bit with balance as you breathe into that sticky shoulder space. Gently releasing this, raise the left hand up a little bit so that it's at a 10 o'clock position with your body. And come back into that deep stretch again, feeling how changing the position of your arm changes the feel of the stretch. If this is uncomfortable on your neck, you can rest your head on a block or maybe a bolster. Gently releasing this. Extending your right hand out beside you like a wing. Arm is straight again. Same thing on this side. I'm going to shift your hip so that your left hip stacks over your right. Left shoulder begins to come back over the right shoulder, feeling an opening along the front side of the right shoulder. Maybe bending that left knee if you need a little extra balance and stability here. And as you exhale, gently release this, sliding the right hand up to a 2 o'clock position. Come into that stretch again here, feeling the change in your shoulder muscle as you breathe into those tight spaces. We worked them very hard today. Exhale, gently release this, coming back to your belly on the mat. Bringing your hands beneath your shoulders, press back. Child's pose here. This time bring your hands behind you, palms facing the ceiling, feeling an opening along the back of your heart space. Feeling the tension in your shoulders release as they fall down toward the mat. If you haven't done so already, bring your knees out wide to the mat, melting your heart down between your thighs, maybe bringing your hands together in prayer behind your head again. Breathing one last time deeply into the stretch in the triceps and the shoulders, giving them a well-deserved rest for all of the work they did today. And now as you exhale again, extend your arms out in front of you, coming back to extended child's pose. To live by grace means to acknowledge my whole life story, the light side and the dark. In admitting my shadow side, I learn who I am and what God's grace means. As Thomas Merton put it, a saint is not someone who is good, but who experiences the goodness of God. Next time you encounter your shadow side, maybe next time it's brought up with the intent of bringing you shame, I want you to think not of the shame, not of the pain or the anguish, but I want you to think of the grace that God extended to you in that darkness. Both the light and the dark make up who you are as a child of God. Don't ignore the darkness, rather embrace it and see it for what it is. A means for God to extend grace and salvation to you. God, we thank you for grace. Thank you for meeting us in our darkness and in our sin, and bringing your light into our lives. Thank you for our shadow sides that make up who we are. God, may we always live by grace. Amen.